have been taking place. We got, you know, quite a few responses, and we decided we couldn't possibly pull it down to just one session. So why not open it up and have the two? So thanks for joining us for this part. I think the last one was an interesting session. We got some good discussions from that, and hopefully some people went away with some good ideas. And we hope the same from today's session. It's really just about sparking ideas or understanding what's happening at other colleges and thinking about how that might impact the way that you do things. So coming up today, we have I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 presenters. First of all, we'll have Natalie Ostergo from IES. Then we've got Aggie Bodas from Macquarie University. We've got Dr. Lynn Lee from Federation Technology Institute. We've also got Martin Walsh from the English Language Company in Auckland, and Alex Austin, director from head of IELTS and E2 Language. So looking forward to hearing the sorts of adaptations that these guys have been doing in the field of assessment. And I think without too much further ado, we might pass it across to Natalie. Is Natalie here?
I can't actually see Natalie in the participant list, so maybe we could jump through to Aggie.
I can see Aggie in situ. Aggie, are you ready to roll?
I am. Can I share my screen at all?
Yes, you can.
Great.
Okay. Just, so I'll stop you sharing, right? Okay. Okay. All right. Okay. Well, it's going to be challenging in 5 minutes, but I'll do my best. Can you see this blank slide now?
We can.
Excellent. Okay. So actually, our context is slightly different to a direct entry program, but because we are a postgraduate TESOL program, but and we have different contact hours in ELICOS setting and slightly different student cohort as well, because we have domestic students, and we have always worked with online and face-to-face student cohorts as well. But you will see that this kind of approach is highly applicable to any other kind of language teaching context, actually. So I'm going to talk about micro-teaching, as this is the aspect of the course that we had to think hard and quickly to move to a fully online environment. And so we always had micro-teaching, of course, in the face-to-face mode. And we always did it in class and live with organizing students into groups, and we encouraged them to practice their language teaching then. But of course, in March, we had to move everything online quickly. Now, the challenges we had is that we wanted all students to have equal access to the micro teaching sessions. And as you know, we had these online students who were used to asynchronous delivery, and students had work commitments, childcare duties. Remember, we had homeschooling. We also had students overseas as well. So we made this decision that we're going to move everything to an asynchronous mode. This meant that students were given a time frame to record themselves practicing some aspects of their teaching, just a few minutes, and then post these online. I'm going to talk about the actual platform that we used, but we also wanted to prioritize a platform that can facilitate some kind of community, given that we were talking about a pandemic there and everything was quite uncertain. So, but let me just talk first about the underlying principles that we chose to design these tasks. So it was learning-oriented assessment. So LOA emphasizes the task design, the learning task design, with the purpose of combining formative and summative assessment in a meaningful and systematic way. Now, the key principles assessment tasks, that the tasks should be authentic. In our case, videoing themselves, the students were videoing themselves for teaching. This is quite authentic, as we know that students can use these for job interviews, for example, as well. in the teaching portfolios, etc. So the second point is learner involvement. So the students should be actively involved with their learning, and this engagement can be through peer feedback or self-assessment, as you will see. And the feedback should be timely, which technology will take care of that, and forward-looking as well. So that that is basically the formative assessment part of it. So the platform we decided to use was VoiceThread, and it's a media sharing platform. It's very flexible, and it's facilitated by our learning management system. So it's Moodle has a plugin for that. It is very flexible in terms of interactivity. You can give feedback to each other. You can post various files, and you can also give feedback to each other in different modes. You can also use it for formative and summative assessment, language teaching, etc. So let me just show you how we designed the tasks. So you will see that we had the VoiceThread headings stand for the micro-teaching videos. So we spaced these activities out throughout the semester, and so this whole series led up to a final assessment task. Let me just go through it quickly. So for the first video, in the first VoiceThread task, students had to post a recording, any kind of quick recording of themselves teaching in a few minutes, and they had to just give each other feedback. We also started this by putting students into groups. So they had this kind of peer support groups. And then we also designed 2 enabling tasks. So after the first micro teaching, they had to, let me just go back. After the first micro teaching, they had to do a task in the following week. This task was aimed at learning how to give constructive feedback. So what is constructive feedback? What is the language for feedback? And they also had to practice giving feedback on a model video. Then in VoiceThread 2 later on, during the semester, they had to post again another video of teaching a certain language point, but they also had to practice giving each other constructive feedback. Now, this involves engaging with some kind of criteria as well. So this is a deeper engagement with the whole content of the unit. Then we had another enabling task, which was focused on reflection on action and reflection for action. So reflection on what they've done. So that's looking backwards, their performance so far, and then how they're going to improve. And then they had to do some various tasks, which we designed in H5P, and then they need to do some kind of practice reflection on their previous voice threads. And in the final voice thread, they had to demonstrate that they can put the feedback and reflection into practice. Now, this all led up to a summative assessment task, which was similar. It was all, again, a video that they had to upload into VoiceThread as well, but also they had to reflect on how their language teaching skills have improved throughout the semester. So it's all linked together in the end. Now, we have found that the students who completed all these tasks performed better on their last assignment. They were also more confident in giving each other feedback, and also, as I said, they engaged with the criteria as well, and their teaching skills improved, and they had a deeper engagement with the course materials. Now, how can this be used in an ESL or an EAP setting? You can use this kind of structure to look at teaching some kind of oral genre, like a 3-minute thesis kind of presentation, elevator pitch, presenting an argument or presenting an oral summary of something. You can look at more generally on presentation skills, for example, or accuracy, language use through a series of tasks, for example. You want to focus on a certain language point, and that's what you put into the kind of voice thread tasks. So I went over time, I'm sorry.
All right, I allowed you 7 minutes, and I was very quick on the intro, so there you go.
Thanks. So if you have any questions, I might just stop sharing.
Thanks for that. I love that built-in feedback literacy that's there. Really, really helpful, I think, particularly on direct entry programs.
Thank you. And Yuli's here, right?
She's fielding questions in the chat
yeah.
box. Yes. Anybody? So Claire has put a question in the chat box, which you can have a quick look at. Has anybody else got any questions? No. Okay. So Claire's was just about who the students were during lockdown when they were doing those lessons, those model lessons. And Yulia replied that they were sort of family and sometimes even toys. People just had to get resourceful with finding students to teach during lockdown, which is pretty wonderful as well.
Yes. I can see that Yulia has answered the question.
Yeah.
Just one question, sorry. Can I ask a question?
Certainly.
So you said you did this as an asynchronous activity because some of the students had been studying asynchronously and the other students had been onshore students. How did the onshore student, did you have any reaction from the onshore students to move to a completely asynchronous mode? Or?
I don't think so, because we did have our lectures on Zoom as well. This was just an extra activity. Mind you, I think we have reduced the workload in those weeks now, because it takes a while to students find that, of course, they want to upload something perfect. They might find it a bit longer. But if Yulia wants to comment on that, do you have anything to add, Yulia?
Hi. I think they were pretty happy with that, and the reason we tried to put together students in groups where there would be external and internal students in the group. So in a way, everyone got to participate in the same fashion, and then they all had the same tasks to go through. So there was, it was actually probably better for cohesion within the cohort. Yeah.
Also for students who are overseas, so a lot of them left during, in March, really quickly. So it was good for them as well to be engaged with us. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you very much for that. We can talk about, we will go, after we've seen the rest of the presentations, we will go into the chat rooms to, the breakout rooms, sorry, to discuss things that are of interest or could be adapted. So we'll go next to Dr. Lynn Lee from Federation Technology Institute. If you could share your screen, if you have one to share.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes, we can hear you.
Great. Yeah, I'd like to just share my screen. Can you see my screen now? Yes, thank you, everyone. Yes, my name's Lynn, and I'm the Director of Studies at Federation Technology Institute. I'd like to take these few minutes to walk you through our adaptive journey for online delivery of our assessment tasks. And thanks for ELICOS to give me the chance to share and just to learn from other schools. So I'm sure here many of you may have gone far in responses to the needs and the demands of online delivery. And what I'm going to share today might be just an idea of what and how a small school like us is responding. Now, firstly, we are a very small, very small ELICOS school in Melbourne, where the lockdown was seriously affected. We have been seriously affected by the lockdown, by the COVID pandemic, and we were locked out from since March. And at the time of lockdown, we were still using paper. Our assessment are still paper-based. And this year has been our first step into digital. And there are some challenges at the time. At the time, back to March, we had only 1 or 2 weeks to urgently shut down and moved everything onto to online. And then we have some challenges with regard to learners and teachers' digital literacy, where we most of our teachers and students were not used to using Zoom or kind of, and we didn't have Moodle, and everything was on paper. And we're facing with some like different needs of, like, for example, we need to have to quickly produce some digital versions for our assessments, and we have to plan for the future, just how to just develop very efficient way and less cost for the development of assessments. So what did we do in this context? So we our adaptive journey has been through from paper-based to digital documents, and we were paper-based, and then now we are using digital documents, and then we are looking into developing digital platforms for the future, so that we could increase the validity and the functionality of our English language tests. So let's have a look at an example of our test here. We are this is a listening test for intermediate level, and at the very starting point, we used them. We had the test on paper, and this was like a year ago. The student were provided with the test paper and just a pen, and they just need to do it in the classroom. However, this bothered the teacher in the marking process, because they had to handle a lot of pages to go through and to mark and to record the points. We have made an improvement in producing the answer sheet. We make students to transfer the answer into an answer sheet like this, and then this it worked quite well in the face-to-face mode. But when we went online, we had a problem that the students didn't have computers. They don't know how to use computer and how to do the test digitally. Then we decided to convert all of our answer sheet into what you can see here is the editable version of the answer sheets. We encourage students to download the Fill and Sign apps on the phone. So our students, even they don't have the computer, they still can do the test on the phone with just the Fill and Sign apps. That it helps a lot with the school, a small school like us, and the students who were under stress and under very low financial condition. So the Fill and Sign have some plus and minuses. Like, they are easy for learners to fill on their phone, and it works for both printed version and digital version. Even we could use this if when we go back to the campus, we still can just print out the editable version. And however, there are still some disadvantages, like the student still have to download and fill in the document, and they still have to be manually marked by the assessor or the teacher, which that's the most time-consuming job for teachers. So looking into the future, our we have a wish list, like how we can make an improvement and progressing from paper-based to digital documents. We would like to have a kind of assessment tool that should be usable in both print and online versions, and it should be user-friendly for online users. They don't have to download files, and auto-marked by the system when possible, and cost-effective for institutes to set up. We're small, so we couldn't have a big IT team or like IT support like other universities or other schools. So we think about everything is around like how to be cost-effective and how to be maintainable with our IT experts. So from the version of the Fill and Sign, we look into producing the kind of test format that could be easy and can be just transferable to Moodle or to LMS with just cut and paste. As you know, like in the original.
Just let you know, time's finished up. We just have to.
All right. Okay.
Oh, that's okay.
So we have tried to produce the documents with clickable boxes, as you can see here. So the test still on the Word version, but the student can click straight away into the documents. And behind this simple look, there are a lot of work behind it. I can share about how to do that technically in the breakout room if you like. So, and we tried several versions of question type as well, like drop-down menus. And then by doing so, we are able to, we have tried with the Moodle version. We do it ourselves without any like IT or Moodle developer. And then this is how it looks like. It looks like in the Moodle. And then that is what we are achieving now, and we're looking into in the next few months. We could have a version which is both print and on print, can be printable and can be used online, user friendly. Tick all the they tick all the boxes that for our wish list. Yes. So
thank you.
Sorry. Thank you. I hope I didn't go.
No, that's fine. It's I apologize. I have to manage it. It's timing to get it done in the hour. Thank you for that. It certainly is a challenge particularly when you've got those students that don't have laptops. You've got to come up with systems that they can assessment that they can do on their phones. So that's right. A really tricky one. So
yes.
See. Okay. Well, we'll move on to the next one. I don't have any questions in the chat box. I might just ask people to pick up any questions within in the breakout rooms, and we could do that in the feedback session.
Right.
So if we can we move on please to Martin Walsh from the English Language Company in Auckland. You probably stopped sharing there, Lynn.
Yep.
Okay, I'm just going to try and share my screen. So wonder if this will. Oops, sorry. Can you? Probably not. I should be better at this. I'm just going to try and share my PowerPoint slide. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can now. Yep.
Yeah, I don't know if I can share it in the full display. Full display mode. Cool. Yes. So I'm just going to. This will be quite brief, but I'm just going to talk about how we approached our reading assessments in our institute when we were on our direct pathway courses. So we did have paper-based reading tests before, and then we decided to try and just replicate those paper-based tests as much as possible, rather than going for a complete overhaul of assessing reading through continuous assessment models or something to that effect. And the reason why we chose to really just replicate we have two kind of main reading exams, a mid-block exam and an end-block exam. And the reason we just wanted to maintain those type of standardized reading tests was, well, first of all, if we made a massive change, we wouldn't have had the resources to go back and change all of our curriculum in a short period of time. And also we have cohorts moving from one cohort and another cohort, so we wanted to maintain consistency and assessment between those different cohorts, so to make the reading assessment as similar as possible for all of those cohorts. So our paper-based reading test, just a little bit about the test. So the format was a 2,500 words in 3 parts. So it was academic English test with a textbook extract, 2 abstracts and a review extract. And we had a mix of questions based on those texts. And yeah, timing all the students at the test concurrently in an exam room, like a paper-based test. In our reading test, they have 20 minutes reading time, and then they get the questions, and then they have the questions and the text to answer the questions. So just when we moved it online, we didn't really make radical changes to the assessment at all. The format is pretty much the same, but it's hosted on our LMS Canvas as a Canvas course. We have a Canvas course for assessments, and the reading test is one component on that as a quiz, a Canvas quiz. We did have to. But we put texts as images on the Canvas quizzes because we were afraid that it was difficult to control whether people could highlight the the texts and then use Google Translate or some translation software on the text. So we try to put them as images as a way of trying to reduce the possibility of people translating the reading texts while they were doing the test. The question types were pretty much the same, but we did try to remove, we initially thought we would try to just use the automated marking function of Canvas to try and speed up our own marking, but then we decided that we still needed to keep some open questions, but we just removed some of the very long open questions we had. So it does involve still some manual checking of the results that the students produce to determine the final kind of grade for the reading. So there is, all students do sit the test. We try and make sure all students sit the test at the same time still, and the reason for that is we were just concerned that if we allowed students too much time, like a whole day, to do the reading test, and they could choose whatever time they wanted, that there was a greater risk of maybe cheating and sharing answers, or somehow, even though we do have a remote proctoring and remote invigilation system, we were still wanted to reduce the risk of copying and sharing information with somebody who might do the test later. And then for the actual timing, we did decide to extend the times just in case there were, for a number of reasons. Well, the students didn't have a pen to annotate when they're reading the text on screen, and also just in case there are any technical issues or slightly slower systems or freezing, so to try and account for any of those changes. When I say one day here, what I mean is that before we used to do like a reading, listening and writing all on the same day when we did it physically in the school. But we found that because there can be quite a lot of technical issues hosting the test and invigilating remotely, we try to just do one test a day, one component. So we just do reading on one day now, just to be able to have the capacity to deal with any invigilation issues that come up. Just some of the kind of issues, that we have with the online format is students being frustrated about not being able to annotate on the page when they're doing the test, and and even from a learning point of view, it isn't really great because we train them to annotate texts and then they can't do it during the assessment, so it's a bit frustrating.
1 more minute, Martin.
And then we're slightly wondering if the extra time that we give students to do the test has actually advantaged some of those cohorts that have done the online assessment compared to paper-based students who have done paper-based assessments with a slightly tighter time limit. That's everything. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Question there coming through: how did students annotate their texts in class?
So so we did have all the courses are moved on to Canvas now. But in class, they can use like on a PDF, and you can annotate a PDF and type notes on some documents. Or sometimes people would put into a Word, copy the text into a Word document and kind of highlight and write notes like electronically as well. So still, to technical annotation, like digital annotation, but not, but on the test, you can't do any annotation at all.
Have you noticed much difference in pass rates between the?
Generally higher, so I'm not really sure.
Yes, it's hard to know.
Generally a little bit higher, the pass rates, but that we're not really sure what the factors are, because we have a lot more. Like we used to have these tests, doing these tests, we would have some pathway students and we would direct entry pathway students, and we would also have some just general academic English students kind of just studying academic English without a goal of going to university, and they were kind of less serious and not really motivated to do the tests, but they've kind of dropped off from our enrollments. So we really are just focused on direct entry motivated pathway students. So we're not sure if that is a factor. So we're not exactly sure why the pass rate has increased, if it is to do, something we're looking at. Yeah.
Yes. Okay. Thank you very much for that, Martin. I'll get you to unshare that screen, and we'll move on to Alex Austin from IELTS/E2 language.
So I don't think I can take the official IELTS mantle, but E2 language, yes. All right, thank you. I made a little animation, but I think I'm just going to gesticulate instead to talk at the beginning, and then I'll share my screen. So I'm from E2 Language. We're an online test preparation portal. So I think my setting may be a little different to everyone's, but it's really interesting to hear and great to have this opportunity. I thought I would take this opportunity to show you our updated feedback system. I'll call it assessment/feedback system for IELTS. I want to show you the teacher view and the student view and explain how it's sort of meeting, or we're using it to tackle some of the challenges we have, which I'll talk about first. So E2 Language has a few unique issues. One is a huge student body. Thousands of students sign up each day, over 1 million since we started. It's rolling intake, of course. Not all of them become paid users, but those that do will often have assessments as part of their package. They can submit those assessments at any time throughout their learning journey, and they get their assessment back within 48 hours. On the flip side of that is a fairly small team of markers and teachers, and the two may never come into contact. So a student may never actually meet a teacher to talk about things like on my assessment. So that's something we have to factor in when it comes to the clarity of the messages that we're sending to students. The teachers also have a big library of in-house resources that we are constantly updating and developing. And so some of our challenge is to update the teachers and markers about what's available to them, and then help the teachers get that information to the students. So if a student has can't write a complex sentence, we have what we consider the solution, but we need to get that to the student in an effective way. The teachers are marked per task, so they are balancing efficiency and their teacherly drive to give the best feedback that they can. Over everything is the commercial pressure to be consistent, efficient, and ultimately have happy students who pass their tests and leave us good reviews on social media and those kinds of things. So I'll show you how we try to tackle these issues from the teacher's perspective. It's going to be very text heavy, so I apologize for that. But basically when a student puts in, let's say, an IELTS essay, it comes through to our teacher side. The teachers will log in. There's a big list of assessments. And what we use is a combination of personalized feedback and automation. So we get to see the student's name. This is just a dummy one. The assessment that they've done, and the teacher has a sample task. And students' work is in the box here. And then we follow a very standard system of reading and 3 Cs, which are comment, correct, click. So I'm sure everyone's pretty familiar with the first 2 at least. So the teacher will take their text from here, paste it into our comment box down here, and write a comment to the student. This is where that factor of having no contact with each other is important. We still want them to feel part of our community and feel like it's a real person who's looking after them. So we write a personal comment using their name, following the criteria with some praise and some criticism, anti-praise, I'll call it. And then we correct their work. This is one of the changes that we've made. Having used the correction code for several years, we found that there were too many students who just didn't understand how to use that correction code despite some training on it. And it just led to so many complaints and queries through our support team that we decided to give them what they want and correct their work to a certain point. So the teacher reads, comments, corrects, and then they click on the interactive rubric. So I know things like Canvas have something similar. We are constantly refining this. This is our latest update. And the idea is for the teacher to mark fairly quickly just by clicking on the tile. If you're familiar with IELTS, there are 4 criteria, but within those criteria, there are sort of micro features, and we've broken these down as we see fit. And the teacher will score the student for each of them. When they're giving a very high or a high, nothing really happens in this column here, the action, but when they give them a medium or a low, we've automated it, so a comment pops up which will hopefully deal with their issue. This can be edited or removed by the teacher if it's not relevant. And the teacher basically clicks their way through. Often there'll be video links or links to resources that will deal with the problem, particularly in the grammar section. And the teacher can also hover to check the question, hover here to check the student work. So all of this is trying to reduce the time it takes, scrolling up and down. The teacher eventually, once they're pretty familiar, they click their way through very quickly. I'll just show you. So in the grammar sections where it's particularly relevant, we have
just one more minute, Alex.
Okay, overarching the range and the accuracy, but then we've broken down into what we see as the most common errors based on the number of tasks we've marked. So we give them a separate score for complex sentences, something to help them fix it up, articles, a few resources there, and eventually they get a score which is automatically worked out. Really quickly, I'll show you what the student then gets back, which was our biggest kind of overhaul recently. So they get an interactive score report, starting with the score, which they always want, and we finally caved in to give them a score estimate. And as they scroll down, they get more and more detail. So their criteria scores, their prompts, and all that stuff that the teacher did is now built into these drop-down boxes. So their original task is here, the comments, corrections, and a space for them to rewrite and save. If they take a tutorial, they'll show that to their teacher. Sample task is built in, and their feedback is in here. This will get an aesthetic overhaul soon, but you can see how the teacher buttons translate here. The student can click on their video links, and that's it.
Thanks very much.
5 minutes.
Yeah, no, that's why it's pretty challenging to do it in that time. Thank you for that. Scores and giving corrections. I think that's it's really interesting you take that approach, because it certainly is what students want, and we try and educate them in other ways. And you're right, it's sometimes it feels like it's a losing battle. I will go on to the next one, just because we will run out of time, but we can follow up discussions around that approach in the breakouts. So I think we have Natalie Ostergo here with us now. Natalie, if you'd like to share your screen or not, it doesn't matter.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. Okay, I just need to find out what's happening with my screen there and make sure. I've lost what I was going to do, but that's okay. I will talk with you while I get that open. So hi from sunny Brisbane. It's a lovely day here, very nice and warm. I work for International Education Services in Spring Hill. And what I want to show you today is something that we put together for our students who were looking at entering our program. And this was right in the middle of the pandemic, when really people couldn't leave their houses even. So it was a very tough time. And we were looking at, well, how are we going to get our students in? How are we going to get them in without them being able to take something along the lines of an IELTS test or a Pearson test? So we had to come up with a solution pretty quickly. Can I just confirm that everyone can see my shared screen now? I'll take that as a yes. Thank you. Great. So this is the solution that we came up with, which is a bit of a placement test. Now, to be clear, this is being done here in Moodle. And so what happens is students apply to our college, and then they're given a link to this test, as well as their own unique username and password. So we can control authenticity in that way. And so what happens is students take this placement test as an initial way to enter the course and to ensure that we have them placed in the appropriate program. Later on, when things open up and they can actually get themselves into an IELTS or Pearson test centre, we will ask them to take a proper proficiency test at that time. At that time, if they haven't been placed properly, we will then provide them with additional support to make sure they're up to the right English language level with everyone else. But what we found is that this has worked sufficiently well that we haven't had to do that at this stage, which has been absolutely great. So this placement test is built around 3 skills: listening, reading, and writing. And what we found is, because the students are doing this without support and supervision, we've had to be very clear in the instructions that we provide so that students can work through it themselves. So they can start off just to test their microphones. And it's really important here for students to know that they really must start off by making sure that they have enough time in which to do the test, because once they start, that's it. They have to keep going. And they have a limit of 2 hours for this test. And it is based on IELTS style and Pearson style questions. And that's been done quite deliberately, because we don't want them to have to learn specific test taking strategies for this test. So we start off with a listening section here with short listenings. And, you know, this is something that Moodle is great at doing, and these online tests particularly are great at doing, is they're so easy to administer. You just link in the listening text here. The student can listen to it as many times as they like. And we do give them directions, say, you know, you have 20 minutes in total to do the listening, because we do want them to move through it quite quickly. Now, these two are Pearson style questions, and, you know, they're very much about the students needing to use contextual and grammatical cues to really predict the answers on these ones. And so we go through these two here about listening for main ideas, which is quite a nice feature of this test. In these ones, students need to listen and analyze, and they have even though it's MCQ, they have a lot more options to choose from, which does add to the difficulty level. Again, this is a fill in the blanks one, which is really nice, because this is something, again, that these online platforms do quite well, because you can just type the answer in and it'll auto grade, which is really very, very helpful. And then we also have one of these listenings, which is similar to the IELTS Part 4 part of the listening, where they have to listen to a longer academic text and then answer a series of questions based on that. So they get a few different attempts at listening and a few different styles of listening to try and produce some good results there for them. And the reading section is built up fairly similarly, where we start off with short texts and then we move into a longer text. So we start with actually a bit of a first certificate of English style of like use of English style question here, which has some nice drop down options for them to fill in to answer. So that's a nice kind of easy one for them to start with that they're quite familiar with. That goes in again to this Pearson style true false kind of questions there. And these are really good.
One more minute, Natalie.
Oh, okay. Well, in that case, I'm going to just flip through really quickly, because I've just been nattering on with all these question types there with you. So they just keep on going for a fair bit. And then, this one I think is really nice, because this is one where they can reorder the paragraph for main ideas there. And that's a great feature of online exams, I think, that they can do that. This is the longer style essay question. This was initially a grid, and I had to turn it into an MCQ style. But what you can see here is they have the same distractors for each stem. But what Moodle does is you can have them so that they order them randomly, which means that the students can't just take a photo and then share it with somebody. So that's quite helpful. And then that finishes off, I think, after that with our writing section. And again, this one was a little bit tricky, because I ended up plugging the writing question into Google and doing Google searches. And it took me about 10 tries to find a question that I couldn't Google an answer to. So if anyone's doing writing, just keep that in mind. A lot of essays are up there and published already. And we do throw this through Turnitin at the end. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Natalie. It's interesting that Googling of the writing questions, I actually haven't thought about doing that. But,
Hot tip for all of you.
Thank you.
Google your writing questions.
All right. Okay, well, we'll go into the breakout room. Sophie's just been setting us up behind the scenes. When you go into your breakout room, just take note of the number that it gives you. It says you're about to be assigned. Note that number, and sort of when we do the report back at the end, that will help facilitate that. Ready to roll, Sophie?
Cara, what do we want to talk about in the room?
Oh, I'll pop that into the chat. Sorry about that. I think I've already got it copied. I'll pop it into the group chat. But we're talking about which of these adaptations you feel would work in your centre and why, and whether you've adapted any assessments in similar ways or for the online environment. Okay, are we all back now? I think we may be. Actually, in our room, we forgot to allocate a speaker. So one of you will need to allocate, but we were group 3. So group 1, we just want to get we've only got 5 minutes really for this feedback, but just one or two of the things that was discussed in a really brief overview. Could someone from group 1 provide some feedback from that group?
Alrighty, group 1, we were talking at the end about invigilation. For example, having 2 teachers invigilating in Zoom, each taking one gallery view slide of students. But there were other questions, surrounding many other things that others can add to.
Yeah, I think we talked about one of the biggest thing was invigilation, and having the resources involved in creating lots of tests online, and the challenges doing that when you're being depleted in numbers.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you. Yeah, that invigilation is a tough one. We sort of developed all of this tracking sheet for noting down information when students had gone off camera for a period of time or they dropped out, and we had to we get them to do please explain emails, like just to know that they were being monitored and watched. But yeah, it's certainly a tricky one in that space. All right, group 2. Anybody happy to speak about your discussions?
Shall I start? We had Natalie in our group, and so we grilled her on her placement test. It was interesting. They were using it as a sort of stopgap replacement for the usual accepted proficiency tests which weren't available for a while, and so instead of IELTS and Pearson and so on. And gratifyingly, the results from those from their tests were pretty accurate in comparison to the ones that they had used traditionally. And so I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Natalie, but I think the students, once they were able to do another proficiency test, had to do one, and then they compared their scores, and they found that their placement test was pretty close to the accepted tests, which is good. And they also had strategies in place for when that didn't happen, which is important, obviously. So yeah, it was an interesting discussion, and also about how they pegged the scores of their placement test to those the accepted proficiency tests. Also challenging, but they had good strategies in place.
Good. Okay, thanks very much. Group 3, could one of you step up? Time's ticking. Philip.
Hi. Yes. Yeah. We talked about proctoring a little. I was quite interested in the reading that we'd seen, and I spoke about how, from a test writer's perspective, it becomes something of a scroll fest when students have to navigate a long text and then have to navigate away to find the question and then go back to the text. I also talked about how our Canvas has resolved that by introducing a new quiz type where the text is on the left and the questions are on the right, so that the students can navigate both and put the relevant question adjacent to the relevant part of the text. Sort of an improvement. However, I did say there was the downside, because that some of the question facility had been lost. We weren't able to construct the same type of questions, for example, close, summary paragraphs, paragraph completion, table completion. These become a lot harder in the new quiz type, and so a bit of creativity needs to be involved there. Okay.
Thank you. Was there a group 4? No, that was all of the groups. Okay.
No.
All right. Thank you. And then a closing sort of part of that discussion was we had looked at, we just briefly touched on the one that Aggie had presented with the going with the tasks and the enabling tasks, and we all felt that that was a good one to potentially adapt for direct entry courses, just because it covers, you know, the specific skills as well as peer feedback and reflection. It had a good lot of assessment strategies and study skills involved in that one. So that was a good one to think about. Okay, well, I think we're rounding down to the close. So that's been the final workshop for the assessment SIG for 2020. It's been quite a year. I'm in the process at the moment of putting together the assessment SIG 2020 in review. My goodness, I'm exhausted just looking at it. We've done a lot. We've pulled together a lot in this year. So thank you for all of your input, and a big thank you to Sophie. My goodness, if you see the work that she does behind the scenes in bringing all this together, herding cats, she's phenomenal. So thank you to everyone. Sophie, have you got anything to add before we head off?
No, I'd just like to thank all the conveners of the assessment and direct entry program SIG as well. It's been a really fruitful year, and we've had some amazing discussions, and I feel just in this session I was really noticing the level of intimacy amongst the members now. I think we've been through a lot together, and coming out the other side now. So it's been a privilege to go on that journey with everyone, and also with the conveners.
Okay. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Goodbye for now. Have a lovely Christmas if I don't see you before then. See you in the new year.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
See you, everyone. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks,
Bye.
everyone.
See you, Martin.
See you, Craig.
And Alex and others. Take care.
Thanks to all today's presenters as well. It was really great to have some new faces and some new people sharing their ideas.
Right.
Aggie, I just shared the
I think Aggie's
paper about your
just
ideas to be shared as well.
we can send that around. Aggie's gone now. We might need to, I think maybe Marley and Vanessa might have moved away from their screens. You might exit them, Sophie. Otherwise, can you exit them?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
Right.
So we're going to have, I mean, I don't know. Let me just show you what I've been working on. Screen 2. These screens are always moving around. So have you found the ones from last year, or would they be on the website if I go in there?
As I would go on our website, I'll forward them to you.
I would have been on the Navitas email back then. So
yeah, I think I've got them in our mail. You can forward them the link.
Okay. So how long have the other people done theirs yet?
No, No.
Okay.
It's
Just be one page though, shouldn't it? Nothing longer.
Yeah, no, nothing very long. So I think all the ideas that you included and Cora came back with something extra. What did she say that would be useful to include?
Was that to us? I don't
Your
remember.
email, yeah. She might even offer to do that, I think.
To do what? Let me find it. That's a good idea. Perhaps we can conclude by outlining future actions.
Yes, okay. That's a little bit harder, isn't it? Because
well, we may or may not be conveners.
exactly.
So
Yeah, we haven't really got to that point yet. So we'll see. It depends on the timing of this, of when the newsletter is ready to go out, because we'll know who's going to be convener by early next week. But I guess planning for next year is probably going to happen in January now, isn't it?
yeah, I suppose. I mean, an idea for future direction. Maybe she's got something in mind, just to say, continue the collaboration or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah. Or maybe we could invite people to, send their ideas into a survey.
We should probably do some surveying, yeah, right across the SIGs really, because then you've got some nice data to use, Sophie, to show like the outreach and the impact, because they must have had a big impact, all of the SIGs this year, I'd say.
Yeah, definitely.
Everybody's just been completely lost. What the hell? Yeah. So okay.
Yeah, I think when Martin was presenting, it made me realise just how far we've come, just in terms of, what he was talking about. I guess we'd all had meetings on those
way back,
yeah.
Yeah, and like the one from Federation, what she was showing, I thought, wow, we were talking about that back in April and discussing how to do that on Moodle.
Yeah, so, and I guess everyone was so the discussion seemed very honest and open in the meetings, I think, as well.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, it's been good. All right. Well, thank you.
Yeah, well, Cara, I guess, in terms of getting the newsletter happening, it would be good if Stephen and Hora kind of did some of the work.
I'll send it. I'll do a draft and I'll send it to them. I won't necessarily fill in all the descriptions of what was there. I'll put in some description.
Yeah. If you go to the link, are you still there? Oh, there you go.
Yeah.
If you go to the links, so when the sessions are all linked to their web entries.
Yeah.
I think there's probably like even a brief description.
A little blurb.
Yeah, the blurb, not the long blurb, but the short blurb on that page as well. That you need to grab. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. No, it shouldn't be. It's really not too much effort, really.
Yeah. But I thought we'll have a list of the. Oh, sorry. Yeah.
I'll make a list of the resources that we produced, because I think that's a good thing as well. A couple of, when we had the comparison table, and then we came up with the list of, for the invigilation. So I'll try and then the tips for moving online.
Yeah, you can, if you, they're still in the drive. So if you want to link to them.
Yes, I actually found my way back to that drive and saw that. So yeah, that's what was reminding me what was there.
Yeah, great.
I guess I could include the links, couldn't I?
Yeah. But then it's all in one place for people.
All right.
Sorry, I just gave me a thought. I wonder if you want to include the link to the recording of the session.
Could do.
So it's just kind of like a year in review, and they've got it all in one place.
But not all of them were recorded, were they?
No, but I can try and pull. You just put together what you're doing, and then I can try and include the link.
If there has been recording.
Yeah.
Because some of it was sort of really sharey sort of stuff, and we didn't.
That's right. Yeah, and we didn't feel comfortable like recording.
Well, we weren't ready yet, were we? It was all like new territory. Yeah. Yep.
We didn't want people to feel like they didn't want to share because they were being recorded.
That's right. Yeah, and we didn't really want to stand on recording and say academic integrity is out the door. Yeah. Our students are doing whatever. We've got no control.
First round is a disaster. I hope the second round will be better. And are you coming to the branch meeting tomorrow?
I am. Yeah. It feels like such a big thing. Like, oh my God, I'm going off. God, when I used to be around in Navitas, I was always traveling from city to city and and all sorts of gigs. But this is like, oh my goodness, off campus for the first time in all year really.
We're totally out of practice, aren't we? But yeah, okay, cool. Well, I'll see you there. I'd normally say let's have a coffee before or a drink after, but I'd love to catch up and do that at some stage. But yeah, tomorrow we've got our staff party straight after. And I've got a meeting directly before, so.
Oh, okay, no worries. But you said you promised you'd come out this way at any rate.
Yeah, I will. I want to. So hopefully try and do. Are you working right up to Christmas?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I want to catch up with Trish as well. So yeah.
She just won a big award today, Trish.
Oh, she did.
Yeah, at the Learning and Teaching, the Macquarie University Learning and Teaching Awards, and so it was for academic management or leadership, I suppose. So it was for all of the work that she's done across the years with the PACE students in the wellbeing space.
Oh,
so she's had a big year, Trish.
Oh,
yeah.
Because Pamela had asked me to write something for the nomination about her work with the mental health SIG.
She did, yeah. Pamela was really helpful. Really helped her to get that in order. Yeah, she put her in. Pamela put Trish in for the English Australia one. She won, didn't she? Yeah. And also for IEAA, she went in and and this one. Oh, so she won 2 out of 3.
That's amazing.
Yeah,
really good.
Year of well-being.
Yeah, no, it is totally, like, it's on everyone's radar now. So
yeah, rightfully so. Yeah, she's done great, Trish. Yeah. All right then. Well, I'll see you tomorrow.
Yeah, I'll see you tomorrow. Yeah, and thanks for today. I think it went really well.
Oh yeah, I think so too. Yeah, I think it's always good to come together. Probably 5 was too many. 4 might have been good. It's just nobody can do it in 5 minutes, can they?
They found it hard. And I stressed.
And all that preamble and
I know.
On.
Like you just
jump in.
Time. I think also I stressed to all of them that it should be a specific task. Like the task is adapted, because I think that's really useful for people. But I guess that message still didn't come across. So
different things are relevant to different people. I mean, there were certain things that were totally not of interest to me, but other people really focused in on those. So it's good. I think we managed to cover a diverse range of interests.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And interesting to have someone from New Zealand.
Yes. Yeah, with an Irish accent, was that?
Yeah. Well, a New Zealand provider. Yeah. Cool. All right, Carl, I'll see you tomorrow.
Okay. Bye, Sophie.
Okay, bye.